What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another great edition of No Love Philly, the podcast dedicated to artists, activists, musicians, comedians, breweries, basically anybody who makes the city of Philadelphia and its surrounding areas as awesome as it is. Today, I've got a bit of a different podcast for you, but what I want to do is I want to go ahead and apologize. There's a lot of people I haven't gotten back to on the Philadelphia DIY forum and the group, and the reason is I got sick. I got tied up with work. And eventually got really, really sick. And yeah, man, I was actually afraid I wasn't going to be able to pull something off to get you guys a podcast this Monday. But what I did is I went ahead and did something a little different. So this is the No Love Phillies guide to making it in the business. What I did is I picked out some highlights from a bunch of interviews that we've already done with, Matty from Tralfamadore on how to throw successful house shows. Kelsey Cork on places that pay out of town. Manic Pixie, we talked to about, working with when you have bandmates in different places and taking on different roles to do different things. Life on tour. We talked to Brian Walker, who is the dude that helped co-found the Philadelphia DIY community Facebook group. And we talk about touring, drinking, not drinking, making money. We talked to the dudes from No Hope Records and kind of talk about what it's like to the do's and don'ts, being in a band, and what their idea of success is, and what you should do if you're interested in creating your own label and doing that type of stuff. So it's really a catch-all. This is a great episode for maybe somebody who hasn't listened to the podcast before. I know that I'm getting a lot of new listeners. And so I just kind of wanted to put at least something together, man, so that we had something to listen to. I am going to be following up with all of the bands that posted up in DIY, and I'm looking forward to that. So I definitely want to do some interviews this week. But for now, let's do some show listings. So what I have here, Downtrotter is definitely playing with Sister Munch, June 22nd at Century. I can't help but laugh every time I say that out loud. June 21st, you have Year of the Knife, Poured Out, Heavens Die, and that's going on at Ortlieb's. I hope I'm saying that right. And then June 21st, you also have... June 25th, you have Incendiary, Eternal Sleep. On June 22nd, you have Corpse Hoarder at Milk Creek Tavern. And then we go lower here at Tralfamadore. On June 23rd, you have Eagle Daddy, El Americano, Black Dirty, Mage Hand at Pharmacy in the backspace. You have 624, you have Alice KM, Tarantino, Elaine Rasnake, Graver's Lane and Happier Hour at Tralfamadore on 625 fucking Yeedar. Fuck yeah. Psychonaut, Honey Tiger, Amora at Connie's Rick Rack. 627 Thelma and the Sleaze, The Other Men, Secret Nudist Friends at Munchmore's. Muchmore, sorry. Munch. God, it gets me every time. 6:30, you have Secret Nudist Friends, Faux Furs, the Yeah Tones, Tannins at Ortlieb's. So that's my show list for this Monday. If you guys have shows, man, send them to me. Hit me up on the No Love Philly page and just submit it to me in a message. I will get that and I will make sure to post it. I got to do something different with that too. Make sure to like us on Facebook, Instagram. I think that's all. YouTube, yeah, the podcast gets put out on there too. Yeah, man. So that's it, dude. So check out some of the greatest tips that I've got since I've been doing this podcast thing on how to make it, in the DIY scene here. Some really great tips on things that you can do to get money on tour, to find paying gigs, to finding out what it is that you do best, man, and taking it to the fullest. So I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. Like I say, it is a catch-all. I hope that somebody that maybe has not heard the podcast before listens to these and decides that you want to check out the rest of the interviews, because all of the interviews are good, and these are just pieces. And I really just put this together. I'm barely starting to feel better. It wasn't put together like super badass, but you can expect to hear Matty first. Then you're going to hear Kelsey Cork and the Screw. Then Manic Pixie, then Brian Walker, then No Hope Records, and that's kind of the order that it's in, and I hope you guys enjoy it. All right, check it out. what advice? I mean, so you've done. I mean, you've worked with all of these bands.
Yeah.
You've had people coming in, people coming out. And in my opinion, you've had a lot of success in doing doing this whole thing. What advice do you have for people coming into the scene
Sure.
and that want to contribute or want to do something? And what do you attribute that success to, and how can they achieve that as well?
Sure. I think what's really important about this, I think having sincerity. I think if you truly want to be a part of something, and I think if you want you want to be a part of the community, if you're going into the DIY world versus, the corporate world. The corporate world, if you have the money to do it and that's the route you want to go, there's a lot of people you can pay to do this on a much bigger level. But if you want to come out of a city like Philadelphia, or like we work close with like a lot of the smaller like DIY labels in Brooklyn. And these people, it's about community. Every one of these people have these go-to of their 30 or 40 like friends and musicians who just help each other out. I say make friends, go to shows, talk to people. Don't over-promote either. Don't go to a show with the intention of dropping your band. Go to a show because you want to see cool music. And then if you genuinely think you've made a connection with someone, say, hey, you want to check out my music? But I think the truth is just be humble, be sincere, work on your music, make sure the music is good, obviously. But I think just make as many friends as possible and be supportive of each other, and people will not hesitate to help you out if you're helping each other out. It's creating a supportive community. Yeah,
it seems like there's a huge. I was talking to some bands yesterday at your spot at Tralfamadore, and they were kind of talking about like people in the scene that kind of brought them in, took them under the wing, and like, started getting them shows, and was like, wow, this city really fosters that kind of growth.
I think that's why I stayed. I think that's why it was like eventually it went from I'm going to try Philly out to, well, if I'm going to do this is where I'm going to be.
So let's talk about Tralfamadore a little bit. So first of all, the name. I looked it up and I was like, what is this? Why don't you explain to everybody?
Oh, it actually appears, most people know it from Slaughterhouse 5. Okay. I actually have a So It Goes tattoo on my left arm, which is also from Slaughterhouse 5. But it's the kind of fictional planet where Billy Pilgrim is imprisoned in the human zoo there. But it appears in Sirens of Titan. It's kind of his like alien planet that he created. And there's in different books it has a different meaning. But the Tralfamadorians are the aliens who interact with humans in the Kurt Vonnegut book. So it's also this planet where time kind of has its own its own way of moving, which hopefully I guess time should move at different times. We have perception, but then we're getting into the some crazy things. But and my old roommate actually picked out the name. My old roommate Susie, who moved into that house with me originally.
Okay. Did she play for?
No, she's not in the band.
Okay.
No.
All right.
But she when she moved in, we were thinking of names, and she came up with the idea as like kind of like creating our own little planet, Here's our planet, and we were both big Vonnegut fans, so it just seemed like a good route to go on that.
And it is a scene. I mean, I really dug it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera right next. This is a part that I kind of wanted to hit.
Let's do it.
But what I wanted to know was, well, first of all, tell me how Tralfamadore got started.
Sure. So basically, when I started Paper Scissors, well, even before that, when I started living in Philly, the house show scene was king. The DIY scene here is the scene. Most bands who message me and say, I want to play Philly, they're not asking to play this bar or that venue. They're like, what house can we play? Because they know that that's where it is. And I guess when I started getting into the house venue scene here, it blew away what I knew from New York when I grew up. It just wasn't like this on this scale. And I'd been to these places that I just had the best time. So I guess my goal was, when I was moving out of my last place, I was like, I want a house that I can practice music, play music, throw parties, but I want to throw shows. And I found some cool people who wanted to live with me and get into that dream. And I have a whole new crew. My new crew is even more into it. But I think that the goal was throw really good parties, but no garbage, we want to keep the place clean. We want the house to be welcoming. We don't want to seem apathetic. We don't want to just be sitting around looking like we don't care. We try and throw it like it's any venue, any good venue. We put a lot of money and time into the sound and the setup. And it's not an ideal space because it's a house. It's not made for this. We're going to knock this thing down one day probably. But we just want to throw something that feels both professional but also like the best house party you could be at, And I think that's when we have those nights where it just goes right. Like yesterday was one of those where it's just like this great party, but also like the music sounds great. People are having a great time. We have a place for people to crash, and I think that's the dream in the DIY scene, is to be able to have your own event, have a place where you can do the music, and, you know, God forbid anyone needs a place to sleep, get on the damn couch. There's a place for you, you know?
So the other question is, what does it take to run a successful house venue?
Cleaning. There's a joke I have running when we first about before people had like known what we were doing. Like the Tralf was one of the venues. Basically, like even by show 20, people were like, "Oh, is this your first show? Your place looks so clean. It's gonna be trashed." And you know what? If your house is clean, when people come into it, they clean up after themselves. And if you kind of, you know, if you treat it like this is also a home, you know, I think a lot of what happens, people get really burnt out on house venues because their place gets trashed. Even the venues that are like legendary and cool, like that have done a great job running shows, like, you know, people just kind of let it go to hell. And I think what's been really cool about our house and what people have always liked is that it still feels like a nice place to be, but it's also like a great party. And I think part of it is just when you pick the bands and the people, you know if a band has a bad reputation of just being jerks, you don't want them in your house because they're going to bring jerks into your house. Obviously, the doors are open to whoever wants to come to a show, you know, and hopefully you'll like get the vibe. If the vibe is friendly and professional and good, people are going to be good to each other. But I think part of it is really just having a respect for the space. And I think beyond that, investing some money in a good sound system so it sounds good. Like, just because it's a house venue, it doesn't mean it doesn't have to sound like shit. You know.
What are some of those legendary venues?
I mean, the biggest ones for me are like the Ox, which was in North Philly. There was help me right now. What was the big one in West Philly?
You're telling me I'm new to all this.
Oh my goodness, what is it? Golden Tea House. Golden Tea House got like run into the ground, but they were doing the biggest parties every night. It was amazing. It was epic. But man, that like the building couldn't take it anymore. All Night Diner right now in West Philly is like doing 4 shows a week, but they're ending their lease soon because, you know, they did it. It was a moment. You know, it became more about the show than the house on a certain aspect. I couldn't run a show house where I was doing 4 nights a week because I still need my house. But I think that those places are incredible. You know, there was and then you have like the more like established places like a place like Philomoka, which is like real legit. You know, now there's a place called Double H Ranch right now, HH Ranch in Kensington, which I think is the coolest spot in the whole city. I like it better than anywhere in the world. It's like a bike garage with an atrium and a house and a giant like subterranean world. But they do shows once a month, so they can keep it going.
HH Ranch.
Yeah.
You got to check that out.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's incredible. But I'm saying it's like that's the balance. You can either run it into the ground or kind of sustain it. And a lot of people are like, that's also one of the aspects is like deciding how much you want it to be just a venue or be your home. And all this shit's illegal. So it's also about making sure that these addresses and these things don't get into the the wrong hands, because, you know, ultimately this is not okay, but it's okay. You know what I mean? And I think we've talked about this in an interview that Slime Time guys and us did recently, is just really being good to your neighbors. I think having a good community of neighbors, you know, there's always going to be people who don't like what you're doing. But if the majority of the people know that what you're doing is something that's good and not destructive, I think that's what will sustain you too. It's just like, you know, we've had the neighbors' kids selling like handmade jewelry in our living room at a show, you know, and it's just supporting that.
Did you do well?
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Or her.
Her, yeah. She made like $100 one night.
Good for her. Oh, they were like, yes, every weekend college.
Yeah.
Done in,
I used to like book some shows with my old band, but now like with Kelsey Cork and the Swigs, the only shows that I've booked myself, I booked one show in my own house, which was like just a party, so like it wasn't a money making thing, and then I booked one show in Westchester, and I booked one show back home in Schuylkill County in Pottsville at a bar called Trippin' Billy's, and the bands made more money outside of Philly than they did in Philly, which is weird because you would think like, oh, you're in a city, like you should be making more money. But in reality, it's like, all right, when we did the show in Westchester, each band got paid like $100, and then when we were in Pottsville, which is like really like the middle of nowhere. Like Pottsville is where Yingling beer is brewed. Like that's the claim to fame in Schuylkill County.
And that's all that's there. I mean,
Yeah,
in
and
Pottsville's pretty. I drove through it. It's like a Mexican restaurant and a laundromat.
Exactly. But I feel like the venue owners are just like really happy to have people out in their bars, and they're excited to have these bands there, and they're excited to pay you. So at that venue, like each band made at least $120, which still isn't like that much, but it's way more than you make in Philly, which is crazy because it's like
all the money's here.
Yeah, you would assume you would make more money in Philly.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's that towns like Westchester and Pottsville, they're the only towns around that have anything going on. So the bars that are in there have a lot more of a budget when it comes to booking shows, which in Philly, I love Philly. It's a hub of creativity, and creativity encourages creativity. But unfortunately, the fact that there are, one, so many bars, clubs, venues, and two, so many bands that just are spawning out of nowhere. I mean, which is awesome, personally. Yeah, they're all insanely talented. It's, like, upsetting almost that, like, all of this is happening and no one's seeing it. But those two facts combined, like, bars can easily get away with paying people nothing because you've got bands that are just want to play. So when you go to Westchester and when you go to Pottsville, they've got the budget to pay you a lot. You just have to know the right people. When it comes to Philly, however, it's easy for bars to get away with it, and it's hard to yeah, Kelsey says they just want to fuck you over, and it's true. They just know they can get away with it because there's nowhere else you can go.
So is there no way that you can control the door? Do you see what I'm saying? So that, like, so you say, all right, man, I'm going to pay you $100 for the venue, but I'm putting my dude in the front to collect cash, so that at the end of the night we know how many paid people we have, and we'll pay you out of that 100. Or I'll give you $100 right now. You let me rent out the venue. We still have our dude at the door collecting all the cash, so we can recoup that money. You don't ever have the option of having your own door person there.
I never tried to do that because, I mean, so far, me personally, like, I'm sure you could talk to Matty or anybody else who has more experience putting on shows, but for me, I'm like, why don't I just have the show in my house where, like, I don't have to pay anybody out? Like, I don't, like, yeah, the same amount of people are going to come out to the show. I would rather just have it in my house where, like, I control everything pretty much. And it's like, if you want to put together your own little bar and everything, it's like you can charge cheaper drink prices and everything, and, like, you don't have to charge as high of a cover, so more people want to come out, and it's more simple. Like, it sucks to kind of have to put it on in your house because you're worried about people, like, destroying your house, but at the same time, I'd rather have it in my house than have it at another bar, because it's like I don't have to pay anybody else.
And two, just being like, everybody's so separated, so far away, but you guys are still this, like, cohesive unit. You know,
we're all very close.
So how do you all get to plan your? Everybody's got this different life in this different place in New York and Philly and in Boston. How do you guys come together to plan these tours?
The internet. No, I think we all have our own, like, our own wheelhouse, our own thing that we own. That's actually what we figured out in the last 5 years, is that everyone has something they're really good at, and they stick to what they're really good at and focus on that, and we all own a thing.
What's your thing?
I book everything.
Okay.
That's my thing. Me and our now second guitarist, Drew, book everything. And we stay in that corner, and we don't often go in other corners. Because, to be honest, if you try to take on everything all at once, it's just too much work.
So it seems to be kind of like a know your role and stay in your lane kind of deal.
It is. It sounds really unpunk rock, but for things to function, yeah, you kind of got to stay in your lane, because when you try to get in everybody's lane trying to help, it actually causes more harm than good, because if you don't know what you're doing, it takes twice as long to do the same task. So our drummer, Emmett, he's in charge of everything recording. So when we do albums, when we do EPs, he's in charge of everything. He liaises with whatever engineers and mastering needs to happen. He works at studio time. That's his thing. And we don't touch it, because we know he does that better. And when you're band that lives in a bunch of different cities and has constant moving parts and crazy schedules. You just own a thing, make that your thing, and do the best at that thing.
So when speaking about recording and things like that, you guys have a 5-year longevity so far in a 5-year career. How many albums have you all released thus far?
We've released 2.
Cool.
And
Full-length EPs?
2 full-length records.
And we're about to come out with an EP.
And we're about to come out with an EP, and it's really cool. And I can't tell you too much, but it's really, really friggin' different. And we're coming out with a single next week that's a cover, and it's going to be free download, and everyone can just have it.
Cool.
Yeah, it's just yours. You just have it.
So talking about that for a minute, like, doing the free download, I mean, you guys, now it's, I'm carrying around today, quite honestly, CDs with interviews that I've done and just kind of handing them out. and they're so vintage, I almost want to say, like they're not, nobody owns a CD player anymore, hardly. And so are you guys pressing albums, or is it all digital? What?
We have physical CDs.
We didn't print that many.
No, they're really not. I can honestly say that like 200 CDs lasted about a year of Ironheart.
Did you sell out of all of them?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I mean, really, people bought them online. Like, it was just, and also we're on Spotify. So I find that what mostly happens with Manic Pixie is people listen to the albums on Spotify and buy concert tickets.
Wow, dude. That's awesome.
So the physical CDs really don't happen. It's the
nostalgia kind of.
Honestly, I really wish we could do vinyl. I've been like complaining about it for a while.
Is it expensive to do
Yes. It's so expensive, and it's so many copies to commit to, and I really want to be able to say, yeah, we can sell that many, but like mostly on tour, people go to the Spotify, they listen to what they like. They buy a ticket for the show. People buy more T-shirts than they do CDs. So I sit there and I go, how can I commit to that? You know?
So one of the things that I talk to bands about is that they have a hard to what I've been told, and the reason that these house venues are so important is because these bands are not getting paid for their performances at the bars here locally.
Yeah, not at all, really.
Nope.
So you guys have encountered that as well.
Yes, quite a bit.
Although on tour we get paid actually okay.
So that's that's the other thing I was going to ask. Is it easier to sustain yourself out on the road? Are you getting those paid gigs, and how are you making it from town to town or place to place? And
It breaks even.
Pretty much.
It breaks even. Yeah. I mean, locally we get paid some, but like I actually think we get better paid on the road, but the road costs more money, so you end up just like breaking even. I don't know, if you did it for the money, your life would suck.
Yeah.
You would be very sad.
And so when you guys go on tour, are you guys sleeping in vans, couches, are you hotels, are you?
You know what? This last tour we slept pretty well.
Yeah, we had a really nice place to stay every night this last tour, and actually, like, every band after each show was like, yeah, you take all the money, man. Like,
Yeah,
you guys were
crazy.
great. Like, I'm so sorry that you're so far away from your homes. And we were just like, oh, well, okay, we'll take the money. Sure.
Thanks.
And we'll have the nice place to sleep and shower every night. Like, that was ridiculous.
So crazy.
So sometimes you get lucky, but most of the time you don't.
Yeah, I would say that most Manic Pixie tours, we end up sleeping on floors and couches. But this past one was so good that
was lucky as
it was so lucky, and it was his first tour with us. And I was like, don't get used to it. Don't do it. Because it is usually a lot more rough around the edges.
What were some of the lucky things that happened to you on that tour?
God, everyone's so nice every gig.
Where did you all play? Was this the Canada tour?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of
Canadians!
sense.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
Canadians are
Canadians.
so lovely.
Canadians are just the most lovely people. They're just so genuine, and like they mean every compliment, and it's just great people. Always
They're
so-
amazing.
They offer anything they have to you. They're like, "Oh my God, you're on tour? Like that must be awful. Let me fix that for you."
Yeah, this tour was unbelievable. It didn't matter how many people we played to. Like every night, I felt like we were treated so well, and that's not the case always. when we go down to the south, because we do that fairly often, we're sleeping on floors. We're very sweaty. A couple of us are in the van. We get paid like $50, and maybe we cry a little bit, but ultimately it's worth it.
So what about $50? Gee, I had a hard time swallowing that. Like that. So do you guys make up for that with like merch sales or?
Oh yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. That is where the money comes from.
So what other advice or tour hacks do you have that might be able to help another band have a successful tour?
I guess two things come to mind. One is make a lot of friends, because most of the people we stay with are friends who we made on other tours, like our Uncle Rob in Toronto, who's the best. We made him as a friend on a tour, and now he's our place in Toronto. So, yeah, make a lot of friggin' friends. Be nice, make pals, and
Connections are really important.
they're just really important, because when you're touring, the more you do that, the more people you know in different cities who can host you, who will come to shows or tell people about the shows. Like, just be really nice. And then the other one is have cool merch. Invest in some merch that you feel like people would want to buy.
That's how you're going to be making most of your money.
Like, have your t-shirts made out of nice material. Have a cool, innovative idea for different merch. Like, we have condoms.
Yeah, the condoms are the bestseller.
We sell a lot of condoms, and
Manic Pixie condoms.
they're so great. And I think that, like, thinking of your merch table as if, like, this is like you. You're you. You're selling you. What is you?
Condoms are
Very
you.
Manic Pixie.
Very Manic Pixie.
Awesome.
I love our condoms.
Our sound is very, you need a condom to listen to this.
Right. That's a very unique way of describing it. I like
So
that.
have cool merch and make a lot of friends. Also, when bands come to your city, support them in any way you can. I can't always get them a show, but I give them a million references, often for Tralf, to make sure they've got something. And then if they ever need to stay anywhere, I host them, because at the end of the day, tour is really give and take.
That's strong, man. That's these experience. Are you going with other people? Are you taking other people with you on the road with
it
you?
varies. I could definitely say it's like mentally, emotionally taxing sometimes. But like, for example, a year ago, I traveled across like Penn State. I mean, not Penn State. Well, I did go to Penn State, but I traveled across the state of Pennsylvania for 4 days in a row.
You went to Penn State, like you went to school there? Or you
Yeah,
like
I did go to Penn State for school.
no joke.
And I played there too.
Oh
Multiple
man!
times.
All right, what did you go to school for? Just curious.
For my undergrad, I went to school for psychology, and my master's was in industrial organizational psychology. But at
Oh,
Penn
so you were in it to make the big bucks. I guess
Yeah.
when you're looking at like training and
training
like,
organization and stuff. And like I already foresaw, like if I get this degree, people that have those types of jobs have flexible schedules, and like I already met people that were touring musicians that still made.
That's
like,
so smart, dude.
Yeah,
That's so
so,
smart.
yeah.
You know, so I can live and play, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome,
Yeah,
dude.
but yeah, back to like the original thing. Like for example, the 4-day tour that I did with one person, she collaborated with me on my current record, Solace, and we were friends from this club called Songwriters Club. So we just did a 4-day tour, and that was it. So I like teamed up with songwriters. My very first tour ever in life, I teamed up with a pop punk band, and I thought tour was about getting drunk, and I puked a lot.
Oh, really?
That was not good. That wasn't good at all. And then I learned that's not what you do on tour. But
I don't think everybody's gotten that memo yet. Buddy.
yeah, no, and it saves a lot of money when you don't.
Right,
drink.
absolutely.
But I've definitely like done tours where it's just myself, like the Rochester tour. Because I was in Chester, PA the day before that, and I was in another town the day before that. So that was like a 3-day run. I was just by myself, like going place to place. So like you learn how to be like social in very unfamiliar situations, if that makes any sense. So like I said, it all varies. So yeah.
Yeah, man. So here's a question that I have for you as a touring musician, and you say sometimes you make money, sometimes you lose money, but how and when does a musician know when to charge and what to charge as like a as a fee for performing. You know,
so
what I mean?
it's
You're
two things
a
you
writer.
want, it's two things you want to like consider. One, what's your cost of travel between like getting there and the next place you need to be? Two, the second thing you want to consider is what's your draw, or what draw do you think the establishment can make for you? As much as like bookers are definitely probably hate when I'm going to say this, but like there are such things as venues that do have their own built-in fan base just because of where they're located, and people like going to that place. Like I've definitely played places where like no one knew me, but it's a Friday night and they like going to that place.
Right.
You know? So like those are the two big factors that you want to take into consideration. And like some people are on the persuasion like, you know, locals don't get paid. Some people are on the persuasion like touring bands only get paid. But I don't really want to touch too much on that because that's another tangent. But how I like basically determine my cost when asked is that. Or I'll just go on like a whole donation pay what you want system. So like I have a 13, almost 14-day tour coming up. Half the dates do have guarantees. The other dates are kind of like, hey, we're just going to have to pay out of the basket. And like if 60 people come and they all put in $5, like, you know, that's that. So it's like, it's a toss-up, really. It really is. Because like, I mean, if 60 people come and they all put in $5, that's $300, you know, onto the next road.
Right.
So like it, and I've had nights like that. So it varies. And like, I'm not trying to sound selfish, but it's just reality. Sometimes playing by yourself when you have a 60 person $5 a night and you're the only touring act, it's a lot better than going with the other touring act and everything's about my friends. You're like, well, now I have to split that 150. You know, you know what I mean? So it's all like, and think about what your costs and expenses are, and then what's the cost of production of your merch. Like I'm sounding like an accountant here, but it's just the reality of touring that people don't really calculate, or like what are your ads that you're doing and stuff like that. So,
wow, man.
Yeah.
Wow, dude, it's intense.
It is intense. It can get very intense, and like I definitely know that there's people in the scene that like have maybe mislabeled me or like misunderstood me or like thought like, oh, this guy's got a stick up his butt or like screw this kid, da 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 da. But it's just like at the end of the day, like whether your goal is just to play the biggest house show in Philly or whether your goal is like to really spread your word and tell your story about what you're about, you have to have some sort of plan. And like not all plans involve money, because like playing at the biggest house in Philly probably doesn't involve money. It probably just involves friendships. But if you're trying to play across the nation and tell a story and have people connect with that story, then you're going to need a team. You're going to need friends. You're going to need money, like the whole nine. So
right. So what advice do you guys have for whether, I mean, it's a kid in a band that's wanting to start it or make it, right? Or for people that are, you know, doing a record label, what advice do each of you have for that person?
Want to go?
I mean, if you're playing music in a band or just solo, it's really just get out there and play wherever you can, whether it's one person in a in a VFW or a couple hundred in a venue. Just play wherever, whenever, and just work your ass off and let it happen. If you're looking to get into the label thing, I would say go out and look for internships or volunteer. Just kind of get your foot in the door wherever you can and do whatever is available and just kind of make those connections and work your way into it. That's really the best way. I mean, it's not necessarily what I did or what JD did, but in general, like from the people around that we know and that do the things that we do, like that's the best way to kind of get into it if you're not coming directly like from a band or whatever. Just get out and volunteer, intern, whether it's at a label or a zine or a blog or whatever it is. Just kind of do whatever you can.
Yeah, do whatever you can. Work hard. Don't give up. I know I've experienced a lot of peers in the music industry that or in the scene that I've grown up with and played with in Valencia and even with my days as Self-Help Me. But like people get burned out or they give up because they don't think they can make it, or like they've made it so far and they've seen so many successes and then boom, those successes are gone. Well, you have to keep going. Like Valencia was signed to 2 labels, once on Columbia, and now here I am with my own label with Shaun, starting from the ground up, and my own project as Self-Help Me, starting from the ground up. Like, no one knows about Self-Help Me. They could love Valencia, but it's a totally different animal. And so now I have to build at 31 years old, I have to build my own brand from the ground up. 2 brands. And it's just, how hard do you want to work at it? How long do you want to give up? Is there an end point, or do you just keep going? And I think the music industry is easy to break anyone because it's very up in the air, but my best advice is just keep going.
So what is, quote unquote, for both of you, what is making it? What is that to you? What is it that you've made it?
Making it to me has nothing to do with money or status or anything like that. It's just being able to do what I'm passionate about for a living. Just that's kind of making it to me. Being able to do work that I'm passionate about and care about. That's all I really wanted to do.
For me as a musician, I want to get myself to the point where I'm playing arenas and stadiums.
No joke. That's
no joke. Like, I know I can do it. I know anyone can do it. If they actually really want to do it, it's very possible. And
Well,
that's what I really want to do.
the funny thing is, like, in what I just said and what you just said in terms of musician, the common thing is just passion. Like, if you have enough passion for it and you're willing to do what it takes to get there, that's the common thread with whatever it is. And you could be talking about starting a label, being a musician, or doing whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just passion.
Podcasts, selling hot dogs on the side of the road.
Passion and work ethic.
I might have to do both.
But I'll say another what I was saying about interning and all that. We have a girl that works with us as well. Her name is Jordan. She had just finished an internship at Warner Brothers in the spring of last year. Jordan came to us, and she had done so many internships that her school wouldn't even take credit for them anymore. And she says, I don't care. Like, I don't need the school credit. I just want to do whatever I can. She's like, I'll fold shirts. I'll do anything. And Jordan is still working with us today, even though her internship is over. So that's the kind of thing that people have to do.
Are you guys accepting interns like right now? Like, are people able to apply to be an intern?
I mean, we'll look at it.
Yeah. Well,
if anyone wants to intern, we'll
man a booth at a show or something.
Yeah. I mean, like, we don't have anything like posted looking, but I mean, if the opportunity came.
Jordan, we didn't have anything posted, and Jordan hit us up, and we were like, we couldn't say no. Like, she was really badass.
And there it is, folks. That is some of the biggest tips on how to make it, on what you can do in the business here in Philadelphia, in the music scene. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember, we release new episodes every Monday and Thursday. Remember to like us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we recently set up a Patreon account, which you can check out. And that's that, folks. If you have any questions, feel free to hit us up on the No Love Philly Facebook page, and we will make sure to get back to you. Thank you all so much for your time, and have a kick-ass week.